Good morning, my beautiful babes and babettes. I'm your resident active advocate, and I did the infomercial format on Friday because I was not exactly trying to be candid, as you could probably tell. But I think that for doing the reverse of that video, I should probably put on my ordinary personality, because for as fun as that was, obviously you could tell it wasn't candid, because it wasn't meant to be. This, however, is meant to be candid, and it is how to be the most conscientious person in the room! Yay! So, that's all I'm taking away from that format, just because I think it's cute. But, alright, in order to be the most conscientious person in the room, and as I said with how to be the biggest jerk in the room, this does not apply just to people with disabilities. It can be applied to any minority group about whom you want to know things better, or you just want to make a friend, not just for the sake of having the black friend or the friend with the disability or anything like that. We're not to treat people as tokens, okay? Tokenism is the opposite of what we're going for here. Tokenism is saying that this person is a representative of their group, and that, as you know, is not the view I hold. People are individuals and ought to be treated as individuals, not as groups. But in order to let go of these preconceived notions we might have, again, we need to communicate with people on their level. This is one of the really major takeaways from this series that I want y'all to have, because if we don't communicate with people on their level and actually try to learn from them as individuals and not as representatives of their group, then all we're going to take away from the interaction is, oh, that person looks different, speaks differently, acts different from how I act. They're not, quote, me, therefore I don't have to listen to their point of view, be conscious of their identity, and all of the things that come along with identity. Because there's a great deal of history behind every single cultural, racial, sexual, orientation, disability. There's a great deal of history behind all of these things. And not even just from, say, the colonial mindset or from the mindset of people who make the laws about people with disabilities or whatever. Within these communities, there's huge amounts of history. For example, in the pre-industrial world, and especially in what we call the Middle Ages, the rate of disability was much, much higher because A, they didn't have health care to the extent that we do, and B, there would often be many more accidents that nowadays could be avoided with the use of proper machinery, with the use of proper method, and people tended to take care of one another more so than they do now. Nowadays, it's easy just to look at a person and say, oh, you're part of that group, and it's not like history can be written just by the, quote, majority group, that being white Western European males. You know, that's the history I was taught in school, in elementary school, at least. This was back in the 90s. But, my God, there's an entire world outside of Western Europe. And even in Western Europe, it's not like everyone was just homogeneously white, blonde hair, blue eyes. It's not like that. There was a great deal of diversity within all of these countries that we are used to thinking of as white, Western, you know, quote, us, if I am to speak to a white audience for a minute here. You know, they might look like us, but they might not speak like us, or they might not believe in the same religion we believe in. I mean, even within groups, and this is why I say there shouldn't be such things as groups, there's a huge amount of diversity. You look at a person, you can't tell immediately what their sexual identity is, you can't tell what their religion is. Until they start speaking, you don't know what their language is, what their familial background is. So In order to be the most conscientious person in the room, have that conversation about the person's background as an individual, not even as a member of a group. That's basically how you make friends. Friends have to ask each other, at least at the beginning stages, what do you like? What do you dislike? What's your family like? You know, where do you come from? We always want to put people in these boxes, which is why the very first thing often that we ask someone is, where are you from? If we see someone with a quote foreign looking last name, automatically we're going to think, where's this person from? Because it's part of our evolution to try and put people inside boxes. It makes it easier to put people inside of a box if there is something visibly different about them. But when it comes down to, say, people of different races, you're going to get, say, two people from Asia, okay? You have one from Japan and you have one from China. You could call them both Asian, sure, but Japan and China have vastly diverse languages, vastly diverse histories. These are not the same, quote, kinds of people. Everyone's different from everyone else, even within, these umbrella communities that we create just for the sake of ease. We like to be able to compartmentalize this, from this, and say, this is closer to us than this is, and this look alike, so we can maybe mash those boxes together. But that's not a good mindset to have, especially when you're walking into a room where there are people with, visible differences that we might consider negative. Like the example I always give of, say, a wheelchair user. We can't automatically go into that relationship thinking that they are helpless, thinking that they are in need of us, because that just creates a superiority complex. And that's never helpful, and especially in the realm of creating an equal relationship with another human being. For the people who actually do want equity between, quote, groups of human beings, we have to be conscious of the fact that we do put people into groups, and we have to attempt to dispel the desire and the instinct to put people into groups. Yes, this is at least semi-instinctual, but it can be unlearned. It's not going to happen overnight. No one should expect it to happen overnight. Even with a change in policy, like, say, in America with the 13th Amendment, you can no longer hold slaves. Beautiful, magnificent, right? But that does not change the cultural ethos, the cultural mindset of what Black people were perceived as being like. That doesn't change how they were actually viewed, which is why even to this day, there is not equity between white and Black in America. And it's not just America. It's all over the place. Racial homogeneity is a bad thing. I think that if countries can be diversified, they ought to be, because we need to learn from one another's experiences in order to let go of these boxes that we have learned to put people in and that we have learned to put ourselves in. It can be unlearned. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't expect it to happen overnight. Hold yourself to a high standard, but don't hold yourself to an impossible standard. This is how to be the most conscientious person in the room, to know that you do not know, and to attempt to reconcile that over the process of learning through time and from other people. I'm thinking that over the next little while, I'm going to go through all of the material I have on the topic of disability. But if this short circuits, I may move on to addressing the rights of other minority groups, and especially right now in this very critical period in America. I am addressing my American audience right now. Vote, for God's sake, thank you, if you have not already done so. And It would be lovely to see President Orange out of office, but that's just coming from me, and y'all know I'm a liberal by now. So I doubt that there will be many conservatives watching this. So if you're a liberal and you intend to vote for Joe Biden, vote! For God's sake! If you are a conservative and you intend to vote for Trump, you do you, but nothing's going to get better if you do. Just saying. Nothing's going to get better with Biden either. I mean, this kind of thing is going to take centuries, even, because it's taken centuries to get this bad. So it's going to take centuries to get much better, I think. But there are steps that we can always take in the right direction. Government is not going to be your savior no matter who you vote for. We have to do this as a collective, as a people. I'm Canadian. I don't have huge stakes in this fight. But if America gets worse, Canada gets worse, unfortunately, because we're one of your largest trading partners. And you influence our culture quite a lot. So be good to each other, please. And for the third time, vote, for God's sake. Thank you. All right, I will see y'all tomorrow, and we'll see what we talk about then. Thank you, my very conscientious listeners. Mwah.